waiting room, just for people to know. Let us know when we should let them in.
Is the music too loud, too soft?
A little bit louder.
Good? Better? Okay. We can let people know.
Let people in.
Yep, let people in.
Braços abertos sobre a Guanabara. Esse samba é só porque Rio eu gosto de você. A morena vai sambar, seu corpo todo balançar. Rio de sol, de céu, de mar. Dentro de mais um minuto estaremos no galeão. Copacabana. Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro. Esse samba é só porque Rio eu gosto de você. A morena vai sambar, seu corpo todo balançar. Rio de sol.
Now we can slowly start. Sayo.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SGM Food Solidarity Gathering. In these times of so many uncertainties, this week-long experience is our way to create a safe space for connection, collaboration, and sharing inspiring stories of food solidarity and social gastronomy. We are honored to have so many individuals and organizations in our global network who are contributing every day to create a more just and equitable food system. Before I introduce us to our session today and to our host, my team prepared for me a quick reminder that we will have a short poll at the end of the session. So we value your feedback. So please make sure to keep an eye out for a few minutes before the end of the session. And finally, we will also be recording this session, which will be available on our YouTube, because we know that some other organizations are working right now to provide food security in their local communities and are not able to connect. So for those who missed this webinar, you will have an opportunity to watch it afterwards on SGM's YouTube channel. So welcome to this exclusive webinar on fundraising for your organization. Again, this is a webinar that was tailor-made for our global community who requested and expressed their needs to learn more about fundraising for their organizations. We know that this is a peak time for corporate fundraising, and that is why we are so honored and pleased to host this session with SGM expert Patricia Lobaccaro, who is an incredible human being. She's CEO of Mobilize Global, an international consulting company specialized in philanthropy, impact, and fundraising. You might know Patricia as a president and CEO of Brazil Foundation for over a decade. She was responsible for leading this foundation and for making sure that they are developing innovative grant-making strategies and ensuring the integrity of its financial processes. Finally, Patricia Lobaccaro was also a member of the very first SGM Food Solidarity Fund, and her expertise in grant making and philanthropy was a guiding light for the whole SGM team to make sure that this collective fund was as smooth, as coherent, as transparent, and as possible. So thank you so much, Patricia, for your presence today, for your time. And I'm sure that we're going to learn a lot from you today.
So thank you, Zaya, for the kind introduction. Thank you, Nikki, and thank everyone at the Social Gastronomy Movement for the invitation. I am honored and humbled to be here. You know, as Zaya mentioned, I participated in the jury for the Food Solidarity Fund, and I had the opportunity to read more than 50 proposals from over 30 countries. And I could understand the challenges that some of your organizations face in different parts of the world, but also the solutions and the extremely important work that you guys are doing right now. We are facing global challenges, and food is one of the most important, topics we need to discuss right now. And you guys are on the ground providing food security and so many other things. So I am really humbled to be here and share a little bit with you about some strategies that we can take on approaching companies. So this workshop is really meant to be very hands-on practical. I'm not going to go a lot into theory. It will be practical tips. And I intend to present maybe 20 minutes to half an hour and leave some space for questions and some more interactive, talk. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. Can everybody see? Can you see?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so corporate philanthropy is on the rise. And it's not me saying, it's statistics. So there is a report in the United States called Giving USA. It basically measures the entire philanthropic giving in a particular year. It's a very big report. And according to that report, corporate philanthropy has been increasing even before the pandemic. From 2017 to 2018, there was a big increase. And then from 2018 to 2019, there was a 13.4 increase in corporate donations. And that was even before the pandemic. And why this is happening? So there's a lot of movements right now trying to redefine capitalism. The B Corp, the Business Roundtable issued a letter about a year ago saying that the purpose of companies was not just to profit, but companies also needed to have a purpose. There's conscious capitalism. There is the UN Global Compact, the ESGs, and basically customers, there are also a lot of research saying that most customers want companies to have a bigger role into society, into the environment. So customers, the big corp says a lot to customers. You have power with your consumer power, you can influence companies' behaviors. Investors with all the ESG, E is environment, S is social, G is governance. Investors also want to invest their money in companies that have a greater level of social responsibility, responsibility towards the environment. So all this is happening, and it was happening before the pandemic, but now I think it has increased even more. We don't know yet the statistics for philanthropy in 2020, but companies understand now that they need to play a bigger role into society and have a more responsible business model. And not only companies understand that they need to play a leadership role into creating the future we want, but companies also need to show to their customers and their stakeholders what they are doing. So it's a very, very good time to connect with companies and try to foster partnerships. And so although the economic crisis created by the pandemic creates challenges for companies, still is a very, very, very good time to engage in conversations with companies for sponsorships, any kind of partnerships and support. So when you are approaching a company trying to fundraise, there's lots of different kinds of partnerships that you can create with a company. And some of these partnerships are non-monetary. Sometimes you can get in-kind support from different kinds of companies. You could get pro bono work from a law firm. You can get strategic consultation from companies like Ben and Company. They have a huge goal of millions of employee hours dedicated to do pro bono work for NGOs. You can have, you guys are in the food sector, so in-kind donations of food, so there's non-monetary support. Companies can participate also with their employees' time and expertise, so corporate volunteering. Companies can engage in corporate giving, matching programs. So there's all kinds of ways that a company can partner with your organizations, but also monetary support in the form of a grant or sponsorship for an event. Or a company, if you have a product or service that you sell, for instance, you sell some kind of a food project, a company also can partner with you and purchase the goods that you're selling. So there are many ways that you can partner with a company. So you need to understand what's going to be your approach for you to be able to identify who is the person that you need to talk with. So if you're seeking for a monetary grant, you probably will need to speak with someone in the company in the corporate social responsibility sector, perhaps the sustainability sector. So the roles change. Sometimes it's community relations. But if you're seeking a grant, probably you should go to a person in the social responsibility or sustainability department. But if you're seeking sponsorship, and when I was at Brazil Foundation, we did a lot of fundraising galas, and our events were highly publicized. We had celebrities, and the events appeared on media. So we displayed the sponsors' logos in the backdrop and the pictures. We mentioned the company's names on the press releases. So sometimes the way to approach is through marketing. So companies have different budgets. All companies have a marketing budget. So if you have a lot of visibility, if you're creating an event, perhaps you can access the marketing budget, but sometimes it's through social responsibility. Sometimes companies issue calls for proposals, for grants. So different companies have different processes, but you have to really think about what is your strategy in approaching the company, so you can, before even having a conversation, understand which could be the possible avenues for dialogue. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to develop a prospect list, how to identify a prospect. But once you identify your prospect and you obtain the contact information of that person, how do you approach a prospect and solicit a meeting? Because right now, with the pandemic and social distance, everything is virtual. So when you contact a company and you arrange a meeting, you're going to not be arranging an in-person meeting. It's going to be likely a video call or just a voice call. I suggest don't try to ask for a 1 hour meeting. Nobody has time. So if sometimes you can get a 1 hour meeting if the person in the company you're talking to likes and is interested in the topic and likes your initial pitch, maybe the person can give you half an hour or 1 hour, but don't even try to request a 1 hour meeting. So if you're approaching someone, I'm doing this and that, would you have 15 minutes to talk so I could explore possible way to develop a partnership? So never ask for more than 15 minutes. Always study your prospect before, even before sending an email or contact through LinkedIn. You should understand what they are doing. For instance, I mentioned Bain and Company. They are right now interested in committing a lot of their expert employees' hours providing pro bono work. So if this is what they are doing, if you're interested in getting this kind of pro bono work, then you can approach that company and ask for a meeting to explore, at least start a conversation using their language and their values. Sometimes when sending an email, you can also mimic the language. Go to the company's website on the sustainability or corporate social responsibility page, and then read so you can better tailor the approach. And again, when you are approaching the company for the first time, never send your presentation. If they ask, you can send a video or a one-pager, but never send an entire presentation, because otherwise it's going to be more complicated for you to get a meeting. List of prospects. So how can you identify companies that could be interested in partnering with you? So fundraising is statistics. So you're always going to be receiving more no's than yeses. So typically in companies fundraising, in my experience, you will get from 7 to 15% of success. So if you have a list of 100 companies, there are prospects, average 10 of them will sponsor you. So you cannot focus on the 9 no's you're going to receive, but in the 1 yeses. So you have to understand that not every company, every prospect you approach will become your partner. But I suggest the first thing you have to do before starting the fundraising campaign, start with a list of prospects. I suggest 100 names. If you have too few names, you may be frustrated. And I think 100 names is a good number to start. So which kinds of companies are you going to put in your prospect list? First, I would suggest have a local approach. Companies that are in your city, in your state, or in your country, or in your region, because companies do give locally. So a lot of the corporate social responsibility programs have something they call social license to operate. So they need, especially companies that sometimes have some kind of harmful impact in the environment, companies that produce some kind of waste, they need to have to counterbalance that with positive impact in the local community. So go on Google and ask for this, like biggest companies in your city, biggest companies in your state, biggest companies in your country, or best places to work, companies that have some kind of award for best places to work, companies that are champions of diversity and inclusion. There are all kinds of lists, more sustainable companies in your country. So you can start developing a list of prospects, first with a regional approach. Second, I will go with a thematic approach. So you guys here are in the food sector. So look into the food industry. Who is in your country, or which are global brands also that work in your country or in your region? It could be food and beverage, could be agriculture, could be food distribution, supermarkets. So I think there is a thematic fit. For instance, if there is a pharmaceutical company that only sponsors health related, maybe through the health, because it's food, you could get an approach, but perhaps it's not such, some prospects, if the prospect only funds education, sometimes you can find an avenue to approach that prospect with. See first if there is some kind of thematic fit with the work you are doing. And also companies that are already participating, for the companies that are signatories of the UN Global Compact, or they are a B Corp, or they participate in conscious capitalism movement. Look in, or the companies that are in the business roundtable. So companies that have already displayed publicly a commitment to social change, to sustainability. So we're going to be speaking the same language into companies that already are trying to follow a path for sustainability, inclusion, equity. And so you should have no trouble creating this list of prospects. Then you need to obtain the contacts of the persons that you need to speak to. So I suggest using LinkedIn. So I hope you guys know how to use LinkedIn. If you're not in LinkedIn yet, I suggest you first create your personal profile, which is your business card, where you're going to put your resume, a little bit of your story. It's important that you have a page for your organization. It's very easy to set up. You can create different pages, no more than one if you want, but your organization needs to have its own page. And then you can use LinkedIn to connect with people and engage with people and create content. So how do you research your prospects in LinkedIn? And some people know, I'm sure some of you know how to use this tool very well, but some of you don't. So basically, I'm going to teach you here a trick. So when you see this magnifying glass here, just write the word people. Then when you do that, now LinkedIn recently changed its layout, because before you could see these options here all the time. And then now you cannot see these unless you type the word people. So once you type people, you can filter. You can, let's say you want to speak with Coca-Cola, for instance, to sponsor your project. So you're going to search for people, and under current companies, you're going to put Coca-Cola. Then on the locations, you can put, I want to speak with somebody in Coca-Cola in my country. So you choose your country here. Then as an example, I put here current companies, I put social gastronomy movement, and then it gave me the names of Nicola, Nikki, Zaya, and Vanessa, and others. So if you put current companies, you can see who works there, and then you can see these are first contacts, and I can send messages. Some companies you don't know a person there yet, so you're going to see it as a second or third connection, but then you can ask here to connect with the person. So if you want to go more sophisticated than current companies and locations, you can go here into the all filters, and then you can choose anything you want and then filter, and it's going to give you a list of people that are currently working in the company. And again, who are you going to approach? perhaps you already know somebody in the company and you didn't even realize. Maybe a friend from college, a friend of a friend, and then maybe you know somebody there, but the person that you know there is not in the department. Perhaps that, remember, you want to approach somebody in the corporate social responsibility or the sustainability. Sometimes you know someone there in the sales department. But if it's a first connection, you can approach and send a message. Hey, it's been a long time. Remember me? We went to school together, blah, blah, blah. I see that you're working at this company, and I really, really would like to speak with someone from the corporate social responsibility department because I'm working with this project, trying to do this and that. So can you give me a name of a person in your company that I can speak to? Or even better, can you connect me? Can you introduce me to a person in your company in the sustainability department? Or perhaps you go into the company's website and you identify the name of the person who is the head of sustainability in the company. So you identify the name. So let's say the name of the person is Maria. So you approach your colleague and say, can you connect me or introduce me to Maria at the sustainability department? So you can ask your contact to make an introduction, and then or you can also cold contact the person. So once you see your prospect here and you click connect, if the person accepts you, when you go into the person profile, you can see the person's email. So I don't know if you knew, but in LinkedIn, you can see the contact information from your first degree contacts. So you can either send a LinkedIn message introducing yourself very briefly and what you're trying to do, and ask, do you think you could be able to chat for 15 minutes? I think I know your company is really interested in circular economy, and I'm working with exactly that in your city. So I think you have a lot, it could be an interesting fit. So you can approach, and again, if you start with 100 companies, your goal is to obtain at least 75% of those prospects, to obtain the contact name, to know who you need to speak with, and obtain the contact information of at least 75%. So we're going to have 75 qualified contacts. Then if you approach those 75, not in one day, but if you contact 10 different companies per week, you have a very good rhythm for fundraising. So from 10 people you connect, you can obtain a meeting with at least 2 or 3. And then, you can always follow up, but you should be able to, fundraising is a statistic. So if you have the right approach, it's going to work, because as I said, companies want to partner with you. They just don't know who you are yet, and they don't know what the amazing work that you do, but they need partners like you right now. So it's good to be engaged in these conversations. So I have, to create a prospect list, I suggest, if you have a CRM system, great. If not, use Excel. And if you're interested, I can share an Excel template that you can use for your prospect list. So I can send it to Science, I can send it to you, or you can send me a message if you're interested. But you have to get organized in fundraising. It's very important to there's a little bit of a systems there. So I can share an Excel is easy. Everybody has Excel. Otherwise, if you have a CRM, even better. But it's important to keep track of when you last contacted that person, what was the response, who you need to follow up with. So it's very important to be organized. Again, once you have a meeting with the company, it's always important that you have an institutional presentation or a pitch deck. Do not send that before the meeting. But in companies, usually the person you're going to be speaking with, it's not the decision maker. There is a process, a budgetary process. Sometimes the person that you approach needs to speak with someone else for approval. So at some point, you're going to have to share a presentation about your organization. And from my experience, I was a funder at Brazil Foundation. A lot of NGOs approached us not in a very professional manner, approaching us with proposals that were weak. And sometimes the work of the NGO is amazing, but not necessarily the NGOs knows how to present themselves, especially for a company. And as I said, in a company, sometimes the process of decision making involves lots of people, and your information will need to be shared. So your presentation needs to be clear, it should be simple, and it should be appealing. And here are some tips on how to prepare a pitch deck or institutional presentation. So I don't know if you know the Aristotelic rhetoric, and then it divides the persuasion in three different, into a pillar of three areas: ethos, pathos, and logos. So what is the ethos? It's, remember, ethics. So ethos is your credibility. It's about trust. So is your presentation conveying trust? So how can you add that? Is there anybody important, maybe a supporter, maybe a famous chef that can give you a testimonial? Then you can put a picture of the people who support you, and their testimonial. So this gives you a validation and credibility. Do you have a celebrity endorsement? Perhaps that. Have you ever received any awards, any recognitions, press, any articles written about your work? So, and even your personal credentials as well, your expertise in the field, all that is about credibility and trust. Logos will be the base of your presentations. That is basically the logical reasoning behind your project. So the case for support, graphics, statistics, facts, arguments, theory of change, all those things have a very logical reasoning. It's important to also present facts. But what converts more in philanthropy is the heart, is the pathos, which is the emotional appeal. So it's important also to have beautiful photos, share inspiring stories, personal experiences, and in research, about donations, there is some scanning in the brain. They analyze people doing about to make a donation. People are exposed to a particular campaign or an appeal, and when people decide to donate, the area of the brain that is activated first is the visual, second emotional. So visual and emotional is what converts more in terms of donation. So although you also have to have the facts, numbers, graphics, whatever, what converts is the emotion. So you also, when making a pitch, come from your heart. So come from a place of passion. Remember what made you start your organization. Why do you work at the organization that you work right now? So why food? Why your organization? So come from the heart, but also be supported by the numbers and be supported by the credibility of external validation. If you don't have a celebrity or a famous support, the social gastronomy network has somebody that can give a testimonial for you, so you are in very good hands. Also, companies, a lot of companies now, we now are in the 2030 agenda of the Sustainable Development goals. And a lot of companies, they are signatories of the UN Global Compact. They need to report their impact according to the SDGs. So if you go put in your pitch deck one slide with the SDGs that your organization is impacting, for sure, all of you impact number 1, 2, and 3. Some of you also impact number 4, which is education, and, the number 17, which is partnerships, but all the ones that you are impacting, make sure you put there, because you're going to be speaking the same language as the companies right now. A lot of companies are interested in measuring their impact according to the SDG. So make it easier for them to understand what you do and how what you do is going to impact what the company is trying to do. So it's a little bit of a tip that doesn't hurt your presentation to add the SDGs, and it counts. Also, in terms of a pitch deck, keep it simple, keep it kind of short, don't make it too complicated or long. A lot of people like to present the problem and then the solution. You can use this kind of framework, but never forget to explain why you are doing what you're doing. So your motivation, your purpose, what is you do, your activities, your project, how you're doing it, so your methodology, and what's unique about your approach. Also, the beneficiaries for whom you're doing it, and a lot of times the beneficiary is also the protagonist, which is interested. So mention the public, where, and then make it actionable. So the presentation, do not try to make it institutionally about you tapping yourself on the back. Oh, look what I am doing, I'm so great. No, it's an invitation for the company. How can you, I like to invite you to be our partner. Why? Because of this, and this, and create some kind of a easy call to action of and how and why you would like that company to be your partner. Make it about them, make it as an invitation for them to partner with you. And here I put a bonus slide on the SDGs, because a lot of companies really are participating in the 2030 agenda. So it's, from my experience, it adds a little bit to the conversation. And then, cultivate and nurture. Fundraising, first of all, fundraising is personal. So it's about personal relationships. So everything I said before, like use LinkedIn or an Excel spreadsheet, these are only some tools to make the process of fundraising more systematic and consistent, and to create a rhythm so you can succeed in doing, a corporate fundraising campaign. But never lose sight that although you're talking to a company, you're talking to a person. Companies are made of people, and relationships are personal, and relationships take time to develop, and relationships need to be nurtured. So, and some relationships take time to develop. So I want Zaya to share her experience. She shared with me that she recently obtained a sponsorship that took a whole year to develop. So she can share on how the process, of 1 year, how it took a place. So I'm gonna let Zaya speak, but also once you obtain your sponsorship, monetary or not monetary, remembering sometimes you click and you get the response right away. Sometimes it will take more time to develop, especially now, like during the early days of the pandemics, company really understood they needed to act. So a lot of sponsorships happen quickly. Now, we are in a phase of the pandemic. The companies already allocated a lot of the 2020 budget has been already allocated. However, October, November are months that companies are planning for next year's budget. So it's a very good time to approach a company now, because you can be on the budget for next year, but understand that likely you're going to obtain your sponsorship in the next fiscal year. So you have to be willing to nurture the relationship, cultivate the relationship, but also once you obtain some kind of a partnership, sponsorship, whatever it is very important to show appreciation for your donors, to thank your donors timely, to have a process for thanking your donors, thanking donors and partners in a meaningful, personal way, and understanding that partnerships are two-way streets. So it has to be both ways. It's not about the company giving you something. It's always two ways. So you keep in mind, also what kind of relationships you want to develop. I think this is, I hope I gave you some practical advice. I'd like to start the conversation with Zaya. And if you want, I can send you some templates, but LinkedIn is a wonderful, wonderful tool for prospect research and to connect. I think there is no better tool for corporate fundraising than LinkedIn. So Zaya, I'm very interested in knowing how was the process of this important sponsorship that you recently got that took you a year of cultivation? What was the secret?
Oh, well, first of all, Patricia, that was amazing. I know, and I think our community, like I was reading the chat and everyone thanking for this opportunity to listen to you. And in fact, thank you so much for all these practical advices. And I learned so much personally during this session, and I want to invite everyone here. If you have any questions for Patricia, please enter them in the chat. So afterwards, it's your unique opportunity. Seize it. And coming back to your question, Patricia, I think I won't be long, but I would love to share this experience with the recent partnership that we announced a couple of weeks ago. In our case, it was a company based out of the United States in North Carolina. So it was all right. We also started back in August 2019, the first contact we made through a video call or phone call, I don't remember now, and Cisco call or something like this, a platform they were using. It was a very exceptional, I think, beginning because they reached out to us, to Gastromotiva, the Brazilian organization I used to work before joining the social gastronomy movement. So they reached to us, the communications and community investment team reached out to us looking for a partner. And that's how the whole process started, right? The negotiation process, getting to know each other. We followed everything like you presented, Patricia. The pitch deck, we had this ready. It took, I think, a lot of calls, a lot of long calls. Why so? And I think because we were very lucky. In our case, our partner wasn't the kind of partner who wanted just to invest this budget and then report and just release a press release, right? But they, since the very first day, they said, we want to be part. We want to make it a true partnership. So I think the negotiations were very interesting because, as you mentioned, Patricia, behind these companies, there are people, very courageous people, passionate people, but also people with vulnerabilities, right? Like we heard yesterday in our communications webinar, and for those who haven't participated, I really recommend you. It's not natural for companies to work with NGOs. They don't know how to work with you, right? So it's also important for you to guide based on their interests, based on what is important for them, on their values, to guide them and build this relationship, this bridge, right, between two different universes. And but coming back to my experience, it started so perfect, right? A company reaching out to you, nice negotiations, getting to know each other. And then what happened is also, it's all about human. The person who was leading these negotiations, she left for the maternity leave. So I could realize how this impacted even the course of the whole partnership building, because the people who were replacing her were not maybe as passionate about the subject as she was. And so it took so much longer than we expected. We were willing to announce this during the World Economic Forum in Davos in January, and it never happened. And then the COVID crisis came. And when COVID came, the team made me to understand that they were very long in responses, and made me understand that, wait, we need to pause. There are a lot of things happening. We need to respect the timing. And of course, from the human, like personal perspective, I completely could understand that it was really not the right timing. But imagine myself in these negotiations since like 7-8 months, in the eyes of our leadership team, in the eyes of our teams who actually planned the strategic planning for our company in ahead based on this partnership, right? And the action plan. So I must admit it was not easy. I had my moments, my crying moments, and I felt very vulnerable and was so afraid to deceive my organization and my team. And what really helped me, I think, and this is coming back to Patricia's advice, it's to maintain the relationship. So no matter what, I was sending them emails. Well, not bombarding, like, of course, but like what we are doing, how is our team, what is our response in terms of COVID, right? And one day, an email came from our partner saying, oh, it's wonderful, thank you so much for all the updates. We have a great news. Natalie is back from her maternity leave. And ever since she came back, I think we followed the process, working on the press releases and finalizing the agreements and everything. So I think it's really about this human connection. And I understand yesterday as well that it's not normal for all the companies. Not all the companies are looking for this kind of, building a true partnership. So I think it's really important to understand what the company is looking for. And but thank you, Patricia, for letting me share this story, because I think that's why for the SGM it's so important for us to make our partners feel the belonging part of the community. That's why during these week-long experience, not only you can assist in participated community-led sessions, but yesterday our partner was part of the session and sharing their knowledge, sharing their advice on how to better communicate with them. And so I realized how many mistakes I made in my communication with very long emails. But
you made no mistakes. You got the big sponsorships. Whatever you did worked fine. But one thing that's very important, there was a research after 2008 economic crisis in the United States. Donations dropped the following years, and there was a research done with major donors. Why did you stop giving? And the answer was because I no longer felt connected to the cause. So keep connected. So what Zaya did, keeping the relationship, it's very important. Keep the relationship alive. And sometimes it's not the company's moment or timing yet to partner, but keep the communications alive, send feedback, updates of your impact, what you're doing, and keep the doors open. And relationships, remember the image of the plant, the seed and the plant growing. If you plant a seed, it's not going to become a plant immediately. You have to water the seed and let it develop, nurture and cultivate. But a lot of you are involved with agriculture, so you understand that even better than I do. Nurture and cultivate. So if you live here with something, it will be this. And a no today is your yes of tomorrow. So do not even expect a yes immediately. So it takes time to develop. So I hope I contributed somehow. And Feel free to connect with me on social media if you have any questions, and I'll send the Excel template for Zaya to share with you guys later. And thank you again. Thank you, Nikki, for the invitation. It's been a pleasure to.
Patricia, don't leave us, please.
Okay.
These 10 minutes.
Okay.
We are sure that there are some people in this room who have potential questions for you. I really encourage you to, if you want, even to unmute yourself, present yourself, and ask direct your question to Patricia directly. We have these 10 precious minutes. I really encourage you to do so. Yes, questions, please. I see in the chat. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question to Patricia.
Can I? I have a very specific question because I was like, oh, but that's what I do. So sending the deck, the entire deck, the main reason why you wouldn't do it is so people don't look through it and already make an opinion up on your work and say yes or no. You would rather just like give a teaser and then engage them. Was there other reasons? And yeah, because I usually send the deck.
No, I fundraise, so it works better if you don't. And from any other fundraiser, you're gonna hear the same. If they insist on something, one pager or video, but all the details, especially sponsorship amounts, how much money you're looking for, that cannot be in your first deck, never. So, so you have to give, you're not gonna get the meeting unless you do some kind of a pitch. And then the headline of the email, try to mimic, as I said, the companies, you have to understand the company's values, the company's goals, see how you can fit. So, and mimic their language. If they mention on their sustainability page, circular economy, whatever. So you have to say, oh, I'm doing a project that's they have a lot of impact in circular economy worldwide. We are in this amount of countries. You have to create some kind of curiosity for the person to give you those 15 minutes. So use the company's language, and in the initial email, don't send anything. If they ask you, then send something, but not the whole thing. And then you can, and sometimes even in the first meeting, you should connect with the person. And sometimes showing the pitch deck in the first meeting is not good. Sometimes you see that they are straight to the point, and then you can go be more assertive. But sometimes you should just warm up the relationship before explaining details, especially if the person you're speaking in the company is not the exact person, and you realize, okay, probably this person is not the right person for me to be speaking with. So, but yeah, but you can, it's trial and error too. See if this other approach works better, Nikki. So test it, because maybe sending the entire pitch deck worked for you. So maybe it worked. So
Thank you.
While if someone else has a question, I wanted to ask my team. We are going to launch now a poll. If you enjoyed this session and found it useful for you, please send us your feedback. We really value it because it's the very first time we do this online gathering. So the poll is in front of you. Feel free to scroll down. There are 3 questions and submit your answer. Your answer. And I see that Sophie from Venezuela has a question. Sophie.
Hi, Patricia. Thank you for your pitch. It was very interesting. I have a question. The presentation that you recommend us to prepare has a lot of information. And if we ask for a meeting for 15 minutes, we will not have time to present all this information. So should we have a specific one for this 15-minute pitch, or should we have, like, I don't know, a lot of presentation, and depend of the time that they give to us, we present?
So in general, I would say people have a very, very short amount of time and attention span. Sometimes organizations do a huge annual report. nobody reads that. You know, the average time that a person will spend reading an annual report is 45 seconds. So a pitch deck is really even less than that. So you have to be, you have to go to the, it has to be simple, it has to be clear, it has to have hard credibility, but it cannot be super, super long. You can send more information as you feel the company is interested. You know, you don't have to put the whole story there. Just keep it simple, and then you can always add more information. So if the company needs to know who is in your board, or who know details of who is in the team, or financials, you can send that separately. But if they request this information, it means that they are interested. And you know that 30-second elevator pitch. So in a 15 minutes meeting, your pitch is going to be no more than 2-3 minutes, because you're gonna need 15 minutes of time to really hear about the company. So I like to, you know, make sure you read and study the company before, because then you can tell, I thought your approach, what you're doing here is very interested. So highlight what your perception about the company is based on what you read, and ask, so I like to understand more about how do you partner with NGOs, how does it work, who do I need to speak with? So make sure you use some of this 15 minutes to listen. And but if your 2-3 minute speech is good, the meeting is going to be half an hour to an hour. The person is going to give you more time. Then you can present the pitch deck, or just at least a few pictures, visuals. I think visuals are important. And then you can have a short version to present live, and a longer version to follow up, sending that through an email, through a thank you email. You can send a longer version. But for, the relation, you have to warm up. If it's a cold call with a company that you never interacted before, you need to warm up the relationship. So you cannot be throwing the entire pitch deck in the first conversation. So it's more to feel the connection, and then details will be in the meetings to follow.
We have, Patricia, we have 3 minutes left, and I see that one last question from Fabiano, who is asking about accountability and what tips can you give us? I know we have very little time, and it could deserve another special webinar with with our expert, Patricia, but if you could give us...
Accountability. So in terms of accountability, companies each time more, they will need to report. So all the ESGs, companies, a lot of companies report using the GRI, so Global Reporting Initiative. So you're going to need to report your impact using the companies. You need to understand what the company's goals in terms of impact are, and you're going to need to report impact. Some organizations, I think, within the social gastronomy movement are large, and some are very small. Larger ones, I'm sure, have some kind of fiscal committee, board, and they audit their results, but some are startups. So organizations have different capacities in terms of accountability. And I think the expectations when a funder is funding a startup, I think expectations are somehow a little bit different, but you should do always your best to be transparent. I think transparency is key, and you're going to really have to report on the impact. And companies have some expectations of how they want this reporting to be. Each company is different, but they will let you know what they expect. But you have to, if you obtain funding, you need to be transparent about how the funds were used, what worked, what didn't, how are you addressing what didn't work, and why it's important also for the company to keep supporting you.
Wow, Thank you. Thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing your knowledge with us today. I think everyone was happy, and I'm so happy for having shared this experience with you all today. I actually would like Patricia to invite you to join us this Friday on October 23rd at noon Eastern Time to celebrate with the Food Solidarity recipients and our global community our collective impact and results of this first round of the collective funding. So please join us. I am sure that it's going to be a very magical moment. For those who are not part of the SGM, please go check out our website for them. There are so many more sessions to come. And again, this session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel for you to share with your networks and listen again, because there were so many advices.